So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to focus on doing building up layers from the rustic that I did in the previous video, showing you what methods and techniques are going to be applied on top of this sea cow wagon. Now I'm going to be concentrating on using the Vallejo products here, and I've got some yellow and grey paint, obviously as the fact that I'm just doing the sea lion into Dutch livery. The surface primer I do have here, which is the skeleton bone colour, which was used as an undercoat for the Class 37, and I've also got some of the chipping medium as well. Now this video is going to be, we'll have some degree of airbrushing work done to it. I'm not going to do so much of a feature with the airbrushing in this video. I will feature that most likely in the next video. But I want to concentrate on showing you how to achieve the chipping effect that you see on this body shell for this Class 37. Now you saw in the previous video I used the Town and Country Scenics Rustic on this sea cow. As it was already in the actual livery, it made sense just to go over the surface and add the weather and effects to that. I've gone over this with the airbrush just to finish it off, and quite pleased with the results of that one. But as an additional one I've got here is another one of these mainline blue livery ones, and the joyous thing about using this technique is it doesn't matter what livery you get them in, because technically I'm going to do a repaint on this anyway. Now I've specifically gone over this to try and create a little of the stipply kind of rough texture that I did on the last sea cow. You want to try and avoid sort of using a sponge or a brush and stippling it, and you want to try and achieve as much of a flat finish with the rustic as you possibly can. I've also left areas where the wagon numbers and stuff, plates and all those sort of things, leave those as clean as you possibly can, and also just gone around the inside of it as well, as far down as I will take probably for when I fill them up with a ballast load. So I've got the sea cow in the spray booth, or the spray box should I say, and it's worth noting that as I'm using a chipping medium, there's no need to put any protective masking tape or mask all over the decals. Best thing to do at this stage would actually be to take a picture of the actual model, so you know exactly where these are when you come to progress on with the paint method that I'm showing you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up now with the airbrush. If you don't have an airbrush, you can apply this by brush, but as I'm doing a repaint on this and I'm going to have the airbrush running, it makes sense just to get this up and in the airbrush. Okay, so I've gone around the bottom of the wagon with a bit of masking tape, as I don't particularly want to get any of the chipping medium on the underframes. Now the places where you've got the exposed wagon plate detailing, there's no need to put any masking tape over those. They're perfectly fine as they are. As I'm using a chipping medium, I'll be able to reveal those later. So I've got some of the chipping medium now in the airbrush. I have diluted it slightly. It doesn't like to go through the airbrush straight out of the pot, so I've kind of given it sort of a mixture of about 30% of acrylic thinners just to get it to flow. Okay, so the model itself is now covered in its chipping medium, and I've allowed that to dry for about 30 minutes. And what I've done is I'm just going to cover the top of the wagon itself, just to prevent any paint that I'm about to airbrush getting that inside the wagon itself. Now with this, what I'm going to do is actually start with the grey first. I'm not going to mask up where the yellow stripe's going to be, just going to do the whole thing in grey. And I'm using Vallejo's neutral grey, as doesn't really matter what colour you go for, as I'm going to apply further weathering effects onto this anyway. So just fill that up with the airbrush, and we'll give this a good coat over. And just masked up ready for the top. What I've got here is chrome yellow from Vallejo, and though it's probably not very a prototypical colour, it'll do. And again, just going to run that through the airbrush. Okay, so we're now in Dutch livery, and though the lines aren't perfect on it, I'm relatively happy that I've got what I want for the next layer, so I can start creating the chipping effect. There is a little bit of overspray in places, as you can see on the bogies, but it's going to be weathered underneath sometime after the video anyway, so it makes no difference. If you just kind of didn't mask up properly. Likewise, a bit of yellow overspray, again, that'll be weathered down. So I'm going to set this aside to dry. I'm going to give it a good hour, even though it's an acrylic paint. I like it so it's completely dry. And then we'll return back and then start doing the next stages. Right, okay, so ready for the next stage now, and all we need is a glass of water, one soft brush. This brush is quite stiff, perfect, and a cocktail stick. And what I'm going to do over the side of the model, I'm just going to dampen it all down. And leave it for about 5 minutes. Okay, so I've already made a start, and I've actually done probably what a lot of modelers do, and use the other side as a test. So that side's actually already done, and I'll come back to that in a little while. But as you're doing this, because the russet itself isn't protected, it's easy to overwork this and go a little bit too deep and then work back to the original blue. So just gently scratching over the surface, and you should hit a few of the little bumps of where the russet was. And you'll find areas of the grey is actually quite soft, and you can really grab hold of it and pull it apart. So little areas like this where you make a mistake, or it's just bled over the line, again I can just blend those bits out. So if I flip to the other side quickly, I'll just show you how that's turned out. And of course it's zooming in, you just see where I've gone just a little bit too heavy and it's gone back to the blue. So that's not the end of the world. I can just go back into the russet and just carefully spot those in, and that will change that. Again, just round the top of there. Wasn't quite ready on this side to peel, so I'll carry on now, and we'll come back at the end. So there we go. I've now finished off the chipping effect on that. Obviously I had to add just a little bit more rustic in various places, just obviously went back down to the blue. So there's a little lesson I think probably learnt on this one, as I think, in all honesty, once you put rustic on, I think it needs possibly a enamel or a spray acrylic varnish over the top of that, just to protect it, so you don't end up going back through to the original surface. With the Class 37, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did use a Vallejo primer, which was the surface primer in the skeleton bone colour, which is kind of a really nice sort of primer finish, which is what you typically see underneath a lot of the locomotives' top layers of paint, and really works well. That's chipped off quite nicely, so it does seem to me like the rustic definitely does need that varnish finish in between it. Anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up here. Plan is next to actually, dare I say it, produce an airbrush video. Never really been a fan of airbrush weathering. I've done a few in the past and I've done a few recently, and hopefully in that I'm going to show some weathering techniques that you see obviously on this sea cow, and how to rework it as well once you've used the airbrush to apply the paint. So as usual, if you've got any questions, comments, please do drop them down in the comments section, and hope you enjoyed the video, and of course give me your feedback, and if you're using the product or you've used it, let me know how you got on with it, and be good to hear. So once again, thank you, and see you all again soon.